Good morning, team. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how I ran a reasonably comfortable 100k's at the Backyard Ultra, my 3 biggest mistakes, and I'm also going to show you one of my favourite running routes in Sydney. Now, before the video starts, I want to see in the comments your favourite running route. I'm about to show you one of mine, and I want to hear yours. So describing it as reasonably comfortable might seem a bit weird, and is definitely not the way that I would have thought I would feel about it afterwards. And I think if you're a die-hard Backyard Ultra runner, you might just think, well, you obviously didn't try hard enough or push far enough to really get into that deep, dark pain cave for a long time. But for me, I think I enjoyed it so much and had the best time and paced it in a comfortable way that meant that really that last lap was the only lap of real proper suffering, and the rest was genuinely just so much fun. Now, before we get into what went wrong, I really think the key to it feeling so good was 2 parts. 1, my expectations, and 2, the pacing and just the general plan. I think my expectations going in were that it was just going to be a sufferfest. Like, it was going to be fun, but pretty early on I was going to start hurting, and it was just going to be about managing that hurt and pushing through and having to dig deep and all those Goggins quotes. But it just wasn't like that, and I think if I'd gone into it thinking this will be really easy, I'll be really comfortable, everything will feel good, then I think anytime something did come up in terms of discomfort, pain, then that would have been much harder to deal with. In my head, I had planned and visualised that from 50k's on, it was going to be really hard to get out of the chair, I was going to be in a lot of pain, I was going to be fatigued, I was going to be probably really over it, really hot, really dehydrated, probably hadn't been eating enough. And it's a funny one because I wouldn't want to kind of go into something saying, oh, you know, it's all going to go wrong or it's going to feel terrible. But I think being realistic of, you know, what am I going to do when it does ultimately get hard? How am I going to respond to that? I think already kind of visualizing and preparing for that meant that when those little things did come up, I kind of just knew, like, oh cool, like this is what's happening now, like this is what I was expecting, this is all part of the plan, rather than being a bit blind to it and a bit naive. So I think setting some realistic expectations and visualizing, imagining what that's going to feel like, and planning out how you're going to respond, how are you going to make sure that when it gets hard that you get up out of the chair and keep going. And I think because I prepared for it to be so difficult, in reality it wasn't that bad in comparison. So I think I then just felt even more amazing because I was like, wow, like it's not hurting that much yet, like I'm feeling good. And ultimately I felt really good up until probably 95k's, and then once I got to 100 it sort of just really all went downhill very fast. So in terms of kind of the first lesson or learning or mistake, I guess, which is what I was told all the time, is to not set really rigid specific goals in terms of number of laps or kilometres, which I tried not to. But when you've never run 100k's before, it's really, really hard to not have that as such a key milestone and a focus. And as much as I kept saying, like, no, I want more than 100, I want like between 100 and 150 or whatever it was, I think it's really hard to just not get really excited about that number. And I think what ended up happening was once I got past 80 I was feeling really good and I sort of knew that 100k was achievable. I got really excited about that because it was the first time ever running 100k's, like it's a big deal. And so all I could really think about was getting to that point and being so excited, and I got to it and it was quite overwhelming and emotional and exciting and kind of all the feelings. And I think I'd been feeling so good up until that point that I just sort of thought, oh, I'll get to it and then I'll be able to keep going. But as soon as I got to it, everything then just kind of shut down. Like physically, everything suddenly hurt way more than it did before. I was really like shuffling, struggling to get my feet off the floor. And what else? Oh, mentally I was just pretty drained, pretty exhausted. I was struggling to really drink my tailwind that I was having each lap. I just felt like I couldn't get anything down anymore. So it all kind of just like came to a head really suddenly, which for some people they might have got to that point and gone, okay, cool, like now this is where it really begins. This is the point at which we really test ourselves. But for me, I went into it saying and knowing that I was not going to risk an injury going into this event, which can be really hard to do. It can be really hard to push yourself far enough and not break. But it wasn't to me worth running for a couple of extra hours to then miss potentially months of running for an injury. So as soon as I felt like I started tripping on rocks, I was shuffling, I was in a bit of pain, I was pretty exhausted, couldn't get any food in, I thought, cool, like this is time for me to stop. And I didn't really have much time to spare on that last lap anyway. So yeah, really happy with where I got to. So a few other things that I think really helped were having a great crew. Shout out to you guys. Just it's so nice to come back every hour, every 45 minutes and see familiar faces, people you love, and they're just there to help you. It was really exciting every time. I never got bored of doing the same route because it was kind of like broken up with these nice moments in between. I think what I'll improve next time in terms of the crew or just the setup is just laying things out in kind of categories or just having things a bit clearer. I think I sort of kept things in bags, mostly because it was so hot, just trying to keep things in the shade in terms of food. But yeah, I think it then made it really hard to decide what to have. So the crew would be like, what do you want this time? And I just, after a while, couldn't really think about what I wanted, didn't know, and I would just grab whatever I could see. So I think laying it out, or like having like 3 or 4 options just handed to me each time, so I'm not just having to think about it, because you know your brain's not really functioning at full capacity when you're 8, 9, 10 hours in. So I think that was a good lesson. Now in terms of nutrition, I think like I'll give myself a, what would I give it? I think I'd give myself a B minus. I think I was really happy and surprised with how much I managed to take on. The plan was 500 mils of tailwind every lap, like every yard, and then come back and have something solid in between. And I pretty much kept that up. I forgot my bottle. Oh no!
Oh, that's bad.
Later on, probably around like 3 p.m, where I started to just kind of get sick of having the same tasting thing. So I think pros were, I took it on pretty much every lap, which meant I had some really good fluids, really good electrolytes, and some good carbs pretty much consistently throughout. But what I will change for next time is just having some more variety. So whether that's just different tailwind flavors, whether that's maybe every now and then just having plain water and having some salt tabs instead. It was really hot.
It's so hot.
It is. The other thing that was so good for the heat was that silly hat that I wore. I'll put a photo here. Life-changing. I'm walking a hill, which reminded me of pacing. I walked all the hills in the Backyard Ultra, and I think it worked really well. I think if I had gone any harder or faster, I would have just burnt through unnecessary energy, worked too hard, psyched the heart rate, and then had maybe an extra minute or 2 in the rest break, which I just don't think I needed. I was averaging about 47-minute laps for majority, and then they slowed down towards like, I guess, the last 5 laps, and it was just a perfect amount of time. So pacing felt good, felt comfortable. I also could have gone slower, and lots of people did. Lots of people walked way more than me or jogged much slower. Like often for the first few, I was kind of not at the front, definitely not, but you know, probably within the first third of people, which in a Backyard Ultra can be a bit daunting. And I think something I didn't realise is how much you question everything. You question every decision. You're like, am I too far up? Am I too far back? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Am I walking too much? Am I not walking enough? Because there's so much strategy and there's nowhere to gain time. So being up the front is not good. It's not helpful. Like, it might be good for some people, it might help their overall strategy, but you don't bank time. You don't get a head start on the next lap if you're up the front. Like, there is no physical gain that you make from that. So when you are towards the front, or like in that first half or first third, I was really like questioning my decisions. And yeah, your mind plays a lot of tricks on you, and it can be so hard to know. And you know, you'll see other runners who you know are really good, and maybe like, I should stick with them, but then you just can't. You have to run your own race. Everyone's so different. Their own like comfortable pace is so different, and strategy and time needed in the rest stations. Like, some people might be really efficient and only need to do one or two things, and some people might need more time. And yeah, it's really hard to not get caught up in what everyone else is doing. So reminding yourself that like, you're just running your own race, and yeah, you're not going to gain anything from going any faster. But yeah, in saying that, I could have gone much slower, and there were people that did go a lot slower. But what I was thinking particularly during the middle of the day, when it was really, really hot, is that I want to cool down as much as possible. I don't want to spend that much time out here in the sun. A lot of it was shady, but some of it was quite exposed, really hot. And obviously being in my gazebo with an esky full of ice, cold water, cold drinks, a fan, wet towels, all that stuff would keep my temperature down much more than me being out there. So I think if I had gone slower, I would have just spent more time in the sun and in the heat and less time cooling down. Oh, the other critical, most important issue, problem, mistake I haven't mentioned yet was my blister situation. And oh gosh, it was annoying. I'm definitely like a blister prone person, I guess, weak skin, but normally if I put the right steps in place, I'm fine. If I use Body Glide, I'm fine. And I think in my head I thought, because I was able to change shoes and socks so regularly, that I just wouldn't get blisters, because there would be so much variety. And typically I only get blisters after really, really long runs, but I thought, you know, if I'm changing shoes, then, you know, there's different parts of the foot getting the friction. So I just didn't really consider it or think about it as much as I obviously should have. And in my head I thought, I'll put toe socks on because then I won't get blisters between my toes. Makes sense. And I'm sure that does make sense for a lot of people. I used some toe socks that I have never run in before. Anyway, turns out these socks were not it. Basically within the first lap, I felt like they were scratchy. And then I came back and just stupidly thought like, oh, it'll be fine. Like, I just didn't really think about it. There was so much going on, so much happening. I just sort of forgot. And then started the next lap and was like, oh no, this does not feel good. And it was so early, like 6Ks in. But I thought, oh, it's fine. When I go back, I'll change them over. It'll be all sorted. Put some blister band-aids on, like before anything actually gets serious, we'll be fine. But that silly mistake early on was my biggest downfall. Biggest mistake. So stupid, so silly. But basically from there, my feet were pretty uncomfortable for the whole thing. Basically my pinky toe was just swollen. It was like a massive sausage and it was just unbearable. It felt like it was about to explode, the whole toe. So luckily I had Lydia there, physio extraordinaire. She taped it.
Oh yes, let's do that. Okay.
Wrapped it up, did whatever, I don't even know. And then I put my shoe back on and oh my god, it was unbearable. Like instantly, it was super painful and I was like, Lydia, like, what have you done? This is terrible. This is a mistake. And I like hobbled that first lap, or that next yard with the tape on for the first like kilometre. I was like, God, like, it's all over. Like, I'm going to be finishing 60 Ks. I'm going to be done. I'm going to have to tell everyone that I've stopped because of a stupid blister on my pinky toe. Like, what a lame excuse. And then suddenly it felt okay. I don't know if it popped or Lydia said it, like, they settle in after a while. Anyway, so it settled in. And I don't want to say pain-free, but very, very comfortable after that for a really long time. until like, yeah, 100Ks. And I was so relieved. I don't know what I would have done if she hadn't have sorted that out. And it's just such a silly little mistake. So on the to-do list between now and April, when the next event is, I'm going to be on a mission to make sure I get the right socks, the right body glide combo. I saw someone using like powder in their socks and all sorts. So it's a project, sort out the blisters, because can't let them stop me again. Which, yeah, they just contributed. I think they weren't the sole cause in the end, but for a while there I thought, I'm going to be stopping because of blisters. How silly. So I think overall, lots of positives to take away from that. A couple of lessons, and most importantly, I'm just really excited to do it again. I think pretty much as soon as I stopped, I knew that physically I couldn't do any more. I didn't regret stopping at that point, but mentally I was like super excited to just go again once I'd recovered. So I'm really looking forward to April, and I really want to go much further. And I think with the way that felt so good for 90% of it, I'm really hopeful that with 6 months more training, some blister prevention strategies, plenty of nutrition planning and organisation, a bit more variety, I think it's definitely doable, what my scary goal is. So looking forward to that. I'm going to do a full video on kind of the plan, training prep for the next 6 months. Now in terms of my recovery since the event, I think mentally I was ready to run the next day. Physically, definitely not. I didn't really sleep that night after the run. But within kind of a couple of days, I think by Tuesday, I felt like physically, like in terms of muscles and joints and fatigue, basically from the ankles up, I was ready to go by Tuesday, or I felt like it anyway. Could have been naive, but I didn't. I waited until Thursday, mostly because my feet were still ripped up and sore, which was probably good to hold me back. And then Thursday night, I did 5K easy run club and felt fine, just pretty tired after it. And then I think I did a jog on the weekend. I basically jogged like this week, Monday, Tuesday, and today's Wednesday, just like 30 to 45 minutes easy pace, bit of walking. And yeah, I just don't feel like full of energy. Nothing feels sore, nothing feels injured. I just feel a bit flat, a bit like I just couldn't go much faster than this, which is totally fine. So yeah, I'll talk about my full plan in an upcoming video, but basically October is going to be a pretty chill month, nice and easy. And then yeah, stay tuned for what else is to come. Thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed the scenery of my beautiful half road, half trail run. I think this is my favourite section. Beautiful rainforest in the heart of the city. How good. And thank you for watching. Thank you for your support on the most recent video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. All those things are super helpful. It really means a lot and makes all the time putting these together worth it. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know, would you ever do a backyard ultra?